Hey everybody, Ian from Novel Music here, and in this video we're going to take a look at Catch, our new monophonic sampler that was built for performance. The device ships with several templates to get you started, including one designed by Anthony Thogmartin, the brilliant musician, producer, and creator of the YouTube channel Seed the Stage. Now let's take a look at Catch's features. Unlike other samplers in the Ableton ecosystem, Catch allows you to select an audio input and directly sample into the device itself. So here I've chosen my external input, which is my audio interface, channel 1. You see I'm getting some signal here as I speak. And when I'm ready to sample the sound, I hit the record button. This is a demonstration of Catch. And here it is. This is a demonstration of Catch. Let's take a look at the parameters first down below here. The playback controls are here. We have the speed, the playback direction, and the panning. Of course, panning, this is a demonstration of Catch, changes where the sound is in the stereo field. The direction adjusts whether or not the sample plays forward or backwards, and the speed adjusts how fast the sample plays, which also affects its pitch.
This is a demonstration of Catch. This is a demonstration of Catch.
Now there are two other speed settings, tone and octave, which I'll return to when we work with the tonal sample. Catch ships with a attack release envelope, which goes as little as 1 millisecond up to 2 seconds for both of these. And let's go ahead and change the length here. So this is a Now the time that you're seeing here is actually based on the normal playback speed. However, if it plays twice as fast, this will be scaled. So in this case, it would be half of these two values since I played it twice as fast. We can set the position, which is in percentage of the total length of the sample. You could push it all the way to the end and to the beginning. And then the length defines how long the audio region will be for the selection. Now let's load in a more tonal sample so I can show you the different speed modes. I'm going to go to Bank A slot 2 and just drag in this short percussive sound. I'm going to turn the reverb down a little bit. The tone speed mode allows us to make adjustments on the semitone level. The default is the full chromatic scale. However, we can go over to the options panel and change this to one of, I believe, 36 different scales. I'm going to select minor. And now when I adjust this parameter, the output is quantized to the minor scale. And then lastly, there's the octave speed mode, which adjusts the pitch in octaves only, from -2 octaves to +2 octaves. Now I think this would be a good time to start discussing the deviation parameters that are available on the bottom section of this device. So I'll start to play, and as I increase this, you can hear that the pitch is being deviated. A new random pitch is being generated, and as I push this value all the way to the top, I get more extreme deviations, so a wider range of deviation. The frequency and the range increase. So this can be quite useful for generating melodies, especially if you were recording the output and something that you liked came out of it. You could later refine that and do something with it. The same is true with the octave. Now I'm getting the same note every time, but I get it in a different octave depending on how much I open up this deviation parameter. And then of course with ratio we get a microtonal type of variation. This will work also with the direction. Let's go ahead and make the length even shorter. So this adds a lot of variation to your sounds, especially if you're working on something that has repeated pitches or repeated triggers and you want to have a little variation. Working with these different deviations really adds a lot to the sound shaping that can happen. Panning. We can do the same for the attack and release envelopes and the position and length. As you can see, it chooses a new place to start on every trigger instead of just from the beginning. Now let's explore the top of the device here. This is where we can manually trigger the sample, and in the case where we don't have a MIDI device. We can also access the 8 sample banks, and each sample bank contains 16 slots. If you load multiple copies of Catch within a live set, they will all share the same sample bank information, which means that multiple copies of the same sample can be played within a drum rack, instrument rack, or across many tracks. This opens up a wide array of sound design possibilities. We can select how the sample will be played as well. The default is gate, so that when I press down my MIDI keyboard, it triggers, and when I release, it automatically stops playing the sample. If I set a release time, when I lift the key, it won't just instantly stop, but will wait, in this case, 275 milliseconds. It'll fade down before it stops. This is a demonstration. Let's hear that with a longer release time. This is a demonstration. Yeah. In trigger mode, when I lift the key, the sample will continue to play no matter what. This is a demonstration of Catch. However, if I re-trigger the sample, it will start again from its starting position. Here's the auto trigger section. When this is enabled, the sample will automatically trigger itself when I'm holding down a MIDI note. So the default here is 10 hertz. Now that's not terribly interesting on its own, but if we apply some deviation to the position, now we have almost a quasi-granular kind of texture, which especially becomes true as I increase the frequency. And maybe I'll set this to trigger mode. Now the next unit we can work with is sync. So this is applying a tempo relative value to the trigger speed. The default here is the 16th note. And this will sync with Ableton's clock. If we get the clock going here. Is a demonstration. Lastly, there is a unit called loop, and the default is 100%. So effectively, this turns it into a looping sample. This is a demonstration of Catch. 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 Now, the adjustment that can be made here is how much of the loop we will go through. So let's set it to say 25%. And again, we can achieve almost a self-oscillating sound when we put this very low. This is a demonstration of Catch. Now let's go to a new sample bank here, and I would like to discuss the MIDI Arm function here. When this is enabled, any incoming MIDI note will trigger recording. So let's try that. Oh. When I lift the MIDI key, the recording stops. Notice that the MIDI arm disables itself once the recording completed. That's to make sure that we don't record over what we just sampled. Lastly, there's a modulation section to look at here, where we choose a modulation source. Our choices are MPE slide, which is CC74, and the good old-fashioned mod wheel, CC1. Since I'm working with a MIDI keyboard, I'm going to go with mod wheel. So we select a modulation source, and then our modulation targets include the speed, direction, panning, envelope, both attack and release, selection, both position and length, and the auto rate. Let's work with the mod wheel first. I'm going to play a note and adjust the mod wheel to affect the speed. Note that when we choose a modulation target, its corresponding parameter is no longer available to make changes. The 5 circles below the modulation target indicate the modulation depth. So by default, it's all the way up, but however, we can adjust this. I'm going to dial it back a little and now work with the speed. Now I'm getting less extreme changes in speed. Notice that I'm even getting a nice sort of melody out of this. Sounds like an auto-tune melody. This is quite fun if you have an MPE MIDI controller like the Ableton Push 3 that was recently released. Using the pads to slide up and down to modulate these various parameters is a very expressive way of controlling your sound and sculpting it. Let's take a look at the options panel. We've already discussed the scale quantization possibilities. There's also a glide parameter, which allows us to slide into notes. We also have pitch bend settings. By default, this is configured to work with the Push 3 controller so that you can slide left and right to have pitch bend as you can on the simpler device, and I believe other synthesizers built into Ableton. We also can have none. We have the pitch bend wheel, the classic pitch bend wheel on synthesizer, plus or minus an octave. And if you want something smaller than that, we have the pitch bend wheel, plus or minus 2 semitones. For controllers that support aftertouch, you can turn this on here, which will affect the volume of the sound after it's initially triggered. The velocity depth is controlled here. At 0%, the sample will trigger at the same volume no matter how hard you're playing your MIDI instrument. And at 100%, it's affected the most. The default is 25%. With pedal in, you can start and stop recording with a MIDI sustain pedals. That's CC64. So those of you looking for a hands-free way to do live sampling, this is the way to do that. Lastly, there's the recording length. By default, Catch will record for up to 1 minute without stopping. However, you might have a situation where you just want to start the recording but not have to worry about stopping it. So we have options for that: half a second, 2 seconds, 5 seconds, 10, 30, and lastly 60. I'm going to make a separate video that deals with sample management, so I will discuss this part of the options in that video. And that's an overview of Catch. I really hope you enjoy using this device and enjoy recording live samples to process immediately in your Ableton Live sets. Thanks for watching this video and stay tuned for the next one.